ibi tí mo rá bọ̀rọ̀ mi dé lórí ọ̀rọ̀ autopsy, ibi tí àárín yẹn gangan la fẹ́ káwọn ọlọ́pàá tún bá wa fojú wò, kẹ́ bá wa mú lọ́kùnkún dùn. Kọ́rọ̀ yìí kó yé kún yùmùyùmùyùmùyùmù, a fẹ́ gbọ́ kúnkún ọ̀rọ̀ yìí mọ́, a fẹ́ rìn lógere lórí ẹ̀. Ta la fẹ́ blame, ta la fẹ́ dọ́là, ta ni ká sọ̀rọ̀ gbè, ta ni ká sọ̀rọ̀ tako. Nígbà tó autopsy bá jáde, a fojú ibi tá à ń lọ hàn wá. Ẹ wo ẹ̀yin ọlọ́pàá, ẹ má jẹ́ kí ẹnìkan lo kíní kan pé àbí ọgbọ́n kan, àbí kò sí ọgbọ́n kankan o. Ṣé ẹ mọ̀ pé gbangba yàwó láwa yìí, kò sí nǹkan táwa máa rí táwa dẹ̀ ní sọ síta gbangba, a ní sọ tó máa fà wá lẹ́nu ya ni. Ṣé tó bá gbé ìjọ Celestial Church ni wọ́n right lórí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí, ẹ jẹ́ kí gbogbo ayé mọ̀. Tó bá dẹ̀ jẹ́ wá jẹ́ pé àwọn ẹbí DOGO ni wọ́n right, ẹ jẹ́ kí gbogbo ayé mọ̀ pé ikú DOGO báyìí kásá báyìí káwòdì ó ní ti ìjọ Celestial, ẹ jẹ́ káwọn àgbáyé mọ̀. Àṣàwọ̀ òkùnkùn níléeṣẹ́ kan ní Wo TV, ohun tá a bá rí la máa mú wá sójú ayé láti máa sọ létí ìgbọ́yín. Ẹ wo bí ẹ bá wá tí ìgbọ́ sítórì yẹn dáadáa, bí mo bá fojú sàkún ọ̀rọ̀ yìí, a máa sọ sí mi lọ́kàn yìí pé àwọn kan wà tí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ò tí ì yé dáadáa. Tá a bá fẹ́ gbọ́ lẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́ bó ṣe ṣẹlẹ̀, ẹ má dàgbọ́ o, ẹ má dàgbọ́. Èyí tí mo fẹ́ tu play tó ti yé yín, mo máa yọ àwọn nǹkan kan bẹ̀ fún yín. Yẹ mọ̀ bí kéèyàn rán níyàn pinpoint tẹ́ máa fi mọ̀ pé òkè bó ṣe ṣẹlẹ̀ láàrin ilé ìṣẹ̀lẹ̀ báyìí, bó ṣe ṣẹlẹ̀ ń bìrè. Tó ti yé yín sì máa wá fi ọgbọ́n tí yín àtọpọlọ yín ẹ fi coordinate ẹ̀. Ẹ jẹ́ ká ṣe báyẹn nítorí pé àròjọ mùsùlùkùn ni àkókò bá wa ṣọ̀rẹ́. Ó yá ẹnjíníà, ẹ bá ń gbé sókè.
Following the death of a labourer on its premises, the Celestial Church of Christ Overcomers Parish, Okeranla, Ajah, Lagos State, was immersed in an allegation of ritual killing. On Thursday, June 1, 2023, the church building was razed by an angry mob after the labourer, identified as Amos, popularly called Dango, died while evacuating the overflow cesspit of the church. It was gathered that the deceased, a father of 3, who also doubled as a commercial motorcycle rider in the neighborhood, was contacted by the church to clear the septic tank, which he commenced about the midnight hour. Residents said they were told by leaders of the church that while Amos was working, his feet slipped off the ladder, leading to his fall and death. However, the deceased relative and several residents said they suspected foul play. Amos' brother, who simply gave his name as Peter, told our correspondent that after the incident happened, the family went to check the cesspit and discovered that it was not deep enough to have drowned him. He said around 4 a.m, I saw members of the church trooping into our compound and asking for my neighbor. So I called him out. One of the church people who had lived here before, Alex, explained to us that Dango was hired by the church to clear their septic tank, and while he was working there around 1 a.m, his leg slipped off the ladder and he fell into the sockaway. What we were told initially was that he landed on his head and he was rushed to a hospital and from there was taken to the mortuary. But we were not convinced that he died there, because a man entered there to retrieve his body and drank the same water, and he was said to be unconscious and was also rushed to the hospital. Is that septic tank a canal that can swallow a person? We went to the septic tank and inserted a long stick into it. The people around us were surprised at the shallow depth of the sockaway. We recovered Dango's torn clothes from the sockaway and a long piece of cloth that we believe were used to strangle his neck. We also found a silver wristwatch there, which we were sure was not his. Narrating why the church building was razed, Isaac stated that the seeming contradiction in the information about the whereabouts of Amos' body ignited the outrage which led to the arson. He said after they initially told us his corpse had been delivered to a mortuary, we heard from someone that Dango's corpse was actually deposited in the church. That was how we mobilized the crowd, and when we got to a room in the church, we saw his corpse there, but the youth with us were too many, and too difficult to control, and that was how the church was destroyed. We checked his body and saw that no part of his body was removed or mutilated, although we saw blood coming from his eyes and mouth. There were also a cow at the church premises, which the mob took away. In a video seen by our correspondent, Amos' lifeless body was seen on the floor of a room which had the same blue and white color paint of the church, while several people could be heard crying bitterly in the background. One of Amos' relatives, Isaac Issa, during a phone interview with the media, said he found some inconsistencies in the church account of how Amos died. They said Dango was taken to a hospital and was declared dead at the hospital, and the corpse was taken to a mortuary. When I was called and informed of his demise, I told them I had nothing to say and that I would go to the mortuary the next day so that they would tell me where the corpse was. But the thing is that they told me that the corpse was in the mortuary, and the cleric of the church went to report this case to a police station, but we were left with unanswered questions. Did the septic tank slab break on him while he was inside it, or when he was about to climb outside? We also didn't know the identity of the man who rescued him from there. When we saw the ladder he climbed, we observed that the ladder was very strong, and if you place the ladder inside the septic tank, a human being cannot enter because of its tightness. So I am wondering how somebody will fall inside that kind of pit and even give up. The level of the water in it cannot swallow up a small boy. So the narration of Dango's death sounded funny. We saw blood coming out from his eyes and mouth, and his shirt had been torn, he stated. A resident, Shel Mojid, said when he approached the church with others after the report of the incident became known to the community.
Tó ṣe rí èyí tẹ́ ń gbọ́ yìí, òun ni àkálẹ̀ gbogbo ọ̀rọ̀ láti igun kìíní àti igun kejì lórí bí ọ̀rọ̀ ikú Dógó ṣe wáyé, kí làwọn nǹkan tí ó fojú hàn, bí àwọn nǹkan ẹ̀yin náà máa ṣà ẹ mọ̀ pé inú ọ̀hún tẹ́ ń gbọ́ yìí ọ̀rọ̀ wà ẹ máa ṣàsọwọ́ ẹ jẹ́ ká àwájú nítorí lọ́wọ́ àmọ́ fẹ́ kẹ́yìn náà ní àwọn nǹkan kan lọ́wọ́ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí tí ẹ lè máa fi fún follow up. Ó yá ẹja tẹ̀síwájú.
The church leaders were reluctant to provide a coherent answer. When I asked for his body, they asked me to go back to the church, and I found him where he was laid down and covered with 2 white clothes, with blood rushing out of his nose and mouth. He looked like he was beaten to death. When I told the others that Dango's corpse was still in the church, a mob rushed to the scene and began to demolish the building and razed it to the ground. His family thought his corpse had been deposited in the mortuary. So when people got there and began to wail, the cleric asked, "Why are you people shouting?" That was what incensed the mob, who accused the church of killing the man and went to the town with the allegation that Amos' eyes and genitals were missing.
Ọkàjọ bá ń dábẹ̀ yẹn dúró kó bá ń dá padà sẹ́yìn díẹ̀ kó bá ń bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti ibi tí wọ́n ti ní wọ́n dẹ́pọ́sìtì ẹ̀ sí mọ́ṣúárì tí wọ́n padà wá rí òkú yẹn nínú yàrá. Ẹ jẹ́ ká gbọ́ àárín yẹn ká tún gbọ́.
Church, and I found him where he was laid down and covered with 2 white clothes, with blood rushing out of his nose and mouth. He looked like he was beaten to death. When I told the others that Dango's corpse was still in the church, a mob rushed to the scene and began to demolish the building and razed it to the ground. His family thought his corpse had been deposited in the mortuary. So when people got there and began to wail, the cleric asked, "Why are you people shouting?" That was what incensed the mob, who accused the church of killing the man and went to the town with the allegation that Amos' eyes and genitals were missing. At that time, the church said the police were present to move the corpse, but things had gone out of control. The senior shepherd of the church was found in hiding by the mob in someone's house. He was brought to the church and brutally beaten. In an interview with a national newspaper, the senior shepherd of CCC Overcomers Parish, James Asher, while speaking from the hospital bed, denied the allegation. He described the efforts made by members of the church to resuscitate Amos, who was declared dead at the hospital before the body was returned to the church premises. He said the assistant shepherd also got stuck in the soakaway, and he was also struggling to talk. I had to rescue both of them. We pressed his stomach to flush the water out, and over 20 people were there. That very moment, seeing everything that happened, I had to call out some people to help us. Even Dango himself knew that it would never be allowed to come and do such a task at night, not to talk of midnight. People are just taking advantage of what happened. I never asked him to come and do any work at midnight. For what? We didn't believe the guy had died until we got to the hospital. We went to a particular station which they directed us to, Langbasa police station, and it was there that he asked us to call his people. The police told us to wait till morning so that they could follow us to the place. They saw Dango on the floor after returning him from the mortuary. The police took photographs of everything. The police were not armed. They were not expecting such a drama. The boys were too much, and they had already concluded what they wanted to do, even when I was talking to them. When contacted, the State Police Public Relations Officer Benjamin Udenyi confirmed the incident. Udenyi said someone was engaged to evacuate the septic tank in the church. While he was doing his job, he fell into the septic tank. He was rushed to a hospital where he was confirmed dead. Some angry youths burnt the church. The body was not mutilated. The police were there and they took pictures, and no part of his body was removed, nor arrest has been made yet. On the official website of CCC, the church's media officer, Superior Evangelist Kayode Ajala, in a statement refuted the allegation of ritual killing, describing it as an attack on the reputation of the church. Ajala accused hoodlums and commercial motorcycle riders of carrying out the arson at the parish and inflicting injuries on the church leaders, which had forced some members in the neighborhood to abandon their homes. The statement read, "The deceased Hausa man known as Dango was quite popular in the neighborhood and was known for the job of evacuating overflow suckaways. He also doubled as an Okada rider. The deceased Hausa man Dango was contracted to evacuate the suckaway on the premises of Celestial Church of Christ Overcomers Parish and was actually paid for the job 3 days before the unfortunate incident. Dango, out of his own volition, chose to do the job on the night of Thursday, 1st June 2023. This was while the new moon service was in progress. The shepherd in charge of the parish, VSE Afsor James, was busy in the inner altar as he was the service conductor. While carrying out the job he was engaged for, the deceased Hausa man Dango slipped and fell into the suckaway. The assistant shepherd of the parish, Senior Evangelist Ayotunde Oladepupo, who was supervising Dango as he carried out the job, immediately tried to rescue Dango, and in the process, he also fell into the suckaway. Church members, alerted by the shout for help, abandoned the service and began a rescue operation for the 2 people that had fallen into the suckaway. The lifeless body of Dango was eventually brought out, while the unconscious body of the assistant shepherd, Senior Evangelist Ayotunde Oladepupo, was also brought out of the suckaway. The unconscious assistant shepherd, Senior Evangelist Ayotunde Oladepupo, was rushed to a hospital, while the lifeless body of Dango was also taken to the hospital, where it was pronounced dead. The family of the deceased Hausa man Dango took custody of his remains with all parts of the body in place. The church said both James and Oladepupo were hospitalized and in critical condition, urging the public to disregard reports aimed at tarnishing the image of the church.
tó ọ̀rọ̀ lẹ́gbọ́ yẹn o lẹ́nu aláyọkà mi lédè Gẹ̀ẹ́sì bó ṣe ṣẹlẹ̀ àti bí àtẹ̀jáde ṣe jáde òun ni tẹ́ ẹ gbọ́ yẹn tíkú kínní àti tíkú kejì. Àmọ́ nǹkan kan tí mo fẹ́ kájọ mú jáde kájọ wò òun rèé. Àkọ́kọ́ wọ́n ní wọ́n gbé DOGO lọ sí hospital àti mọ́ṣúárì. Mọ́tò ni wọ́n máa fi gbé. Ǹjẹ́ wọ́n àrí nǹkan kan gbọ́ nípa bí wọ́n ṣe gbé àti bí wọ́n ṣe gbé padà? Nítorí pé n tá gbọ́ ni pé ọ̀kadà, gẹ́gẹ́ bí n tí olùṣọ́ sọ wípé nígbà táwọn dé station àwọn ọlọ́pàá ilẹ̀ ti ṣú, àwọn ọlọ́pàá ní káwọn dúró díjọ́ kejì so àwọn á lè tẹ̀lé wọn wálé. Ẹ gbọ́, àmọ́ báwo ni wọ́n ṣe gbọ́ nílé DOGO má jẹ́ pé òru làwọn lọ? Torí pé ẹnìkan ló lọ sọ fún àbúrò DOGO pé mọ́ṣúárì ni òkú wà o, òkú kò sí DOGO nínú ilé o. tó dẹ̀ jẹ́ wípé nígbà tí wọ́n wá lọ tí wọ́n wá bọ̀ inú yàrá kan nínú ṣọ́ọ̀ṣì ńbẹ̀ òun náà ni wọ́n tẹ́ òkú DOGO sí. ẹ̀yin ọlọ́pàá ẹ̀yin náà ni a máa tún ké pè nítorí pé àwọn ìbéèrè tó sodo sínú ọ̀rọ̀ yìí a lè dáhùn ẹ o. wọ́n tún ní sọ́kàwé tó ń sọ yìí kò ju ẹsẹ̀ bàtà 5 lọ 5 feet. ó dá a débẹ̀ àmọ́ ọjọ́ bó lẹ́dà ásídẹ́ǹtì lè ṣẹlẹ̀ ẹ gbọ́ kò sí ẹni tí ó mọ̀gbà àtàsìkò tírú ẹ̀ lè ṣẹlẹ̀ síyàn ni ṣùgbọ́n nǹkan kan tó yẹ ká bójú wò ni pé àyẹ̀wò ní sọ́kàwé ìwọ̀n wà gẹ́gẹ́ bí àwọn àtẹ̀jáde àtọ̀rọ̀tọ̀ àtàwọn gbọ́ lẹ́nu àwọn èèyàn ok kò ju ẹsẹ̀ bàtà 5 lọ omi tó dẹ̀ wà ń bẹ̀ wọ́n ní kò lè bo ọmọ kékeré nítorí pé nígbà tí wọ́n figi sí gangan igi yẹn wọ́n ní omi tó wà ń bẹ̀ wọ́n ní kò dé orúnkún wọ́n dẹ̀ ní DOGO lẹ́ni yìí èmi àti yín ṣàlàmù tó mọ̀ DOGO ẹ̀yin agbófinró iṣẹ́ ló délẹ̀ fún yín láti ṣe yìí o ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ó sọ ọlọ́gbọ́n kọ́ ó dẹ̀ sọ aṣièrè kọ́ ẹ̀yin ilẹ̀ lè yàn wá nú ẹ̀ gẹ́gẹ́ bí àlàyé tí àbúrò DOGO ṣe ẹ gbọ́ nígbà tí wọ́n débẹ̀ tí wọ́n gbọ́ ròyìn ikú DOGO tí àwọn èèyàn pọ̀ lọ sí church pé láti lọ wò nígbà tí wọ́n ní DOGO yẹn èèyàn tí gbogbo àdúgbò fẹ́ràn ni wọ́n wá gbọ́ kú ẹ̀ wọ́n á débẹ̀ nígbà tí wọ́n wá débẹ̀ ó ti yé yín nígbà tí ó dà pé ẹni tára bá ta àwọn táyàn tára bá ta tó ń dẹ̀ láìkè yàn wọ́n á máa pariwo sọ̀rọ̀ wọ́n máa ní Olùṣọ́àgùtàn wá bọ́ sáà ni wọ́n sọ fún wọn pé kí ló ṣe yín tẹ̀ ń pariwo gẹ́gẹ́ bí tí àbúrò DOGO sọ tó ṣe lálàyé èyí ló wá bí wọ́n nú ló jẹ́ yín tí wọ́n fi kíná bọ ṣọ́ọ̀ṣì ẹ̀yin èèyàn dẹ̀ wà ní ẹjọ́ ẹ̀yin ọ̀jọ̀gbọ́n ẹ ṣáà ń bá ètò yìí lọ ètò yìí àti ọ̀rọ̀ tá à ń bá lọ yìí ẹ jẹ́ ká fún fọ́lọ́wọ́ ẹgbọ́n lóhùn kan tí wọ́n máa ń pè náà ni màá tún pè ẹ jẹ́ àtàkàtọ̀ torí pé tá a bá tọ̀ yóò dẹ̀rọ̀ nídìí ẹ gbọ́ bá a ṣe tọ́ ti Timothy rèé àtọ̀ lọ́lọ́run fi jẹ́ ó dẹrun onídìí mọ́ wa lọ́wọ́.
ẹ wo sọ́kàwé ìtẹ́rì kódà bí ọmọ ọdún méje bá wọn bẹ orí òyìn sókè
ẹ̀yà gbárùkù tí
wọ́n lẹ́yìn tó túbọ̀ sí pé kò sí kankan ẹ ti kiri yẹn bọ̀ ṣe é ti rí o sọ́kàwé yẹn rẹ o irú ikú tó pa DOGO òun ni ò wá yéèyàn ẹ wo sọ́kàwé yìí o
gẹ́gẹ́ bí àyọkà
wọ́n ní ó sọ wípé
wọ́n ní wọ́n gbé ládà sínú sọ́kàwé
wọ́n ní ó sọ wípé sọ́kàwé yìí bẹ̀ ní DOGO kú sí abẹ́ẹ̀kọ́ dọ́gbàwé tó ní kọ́ gbẹ̀rẹ̀ ẹ wo sọ́kàwé ìtẹ́rì kódà bí ọmọ ọdún méje bá wọn bẹ orí òyìn sókè ṣe é ti rí lẹ́yìn tó túbọ̀ sí pé kò sí kankan ẹ ti kiri yẹn bọ̀ ṣe é ti rí o sọ́kàwé yẹn rẹ o irú ikú tó pa DOGO.
àmọ́ gbogbo ohun tó ṣẹlẹ̀ àti gbogbo àwọn àtẹ̀jíṣẹ́ tó jáde nígbà lórí ọ̀rọ̀ yìí ó wà ní sẹpẹ́. tó gbogbo ẹ̀yin agbófinró wa àti ẹ̀yin náà tí ẹ jẹ́ oníṣẹ́ òfin tí ẹ ní làákàyè ọ̀rọ̀ tí ẹ ní ojú ṣùnùkùn tí wọ́n fi ń wo ọ̀rọ̀ ṣùnùkùn àwa ò sọ pásídẹ̀ǹtì ò lè ṣẹlẹ̀ o èèyàn ti jábọ́ látòrí òpó náà rí níjọ́ tí ò lérò ni ẹ gbọ́ kọ́lọ́májà àrìnjọ ebi ń pọ̀nà èyí tó ṣẹlẹ̀ yìí ilé ìjọ mímọ́ ìjọsìn òró bẹ́ẹ̀ náà làwọn èèyàn DOGO náà ò dẹ̀ rokú sí èèyàn tiwọn àmọ́ ohun tó ṣẹlẹ̀ láàárín yẹn ó yí Ọlọ́run ba bí ò bá yé èèyàn la ṣe gbúdọ̀ wádìí òótọ́ dájú